Where do they usually eat lunch?
Where does he wash the car?
Where does he wash the car?
What model of camera does your family use for videos?
What model of camera does your family use for videos?
What size are your shoes?
What size are your shoes?
Why does she drink coffee in the evening?
What does she drink coffee in the evening?
How do they join the meeting?
How do they join the meeting?
Who do we invite to the party?
Who do we invite to the party?
Who do I ask for help?
Who do I ask for help?
What type of payment does he use?
What type of payment does he use?
How do your colleagues solve this problem?
How do your colleagues solve this problem?
What part of the country are you from?
What part of the country are you from?
Who does she visit on weekends?
Who does she visit on weekends?
What brand of perfume does she wear?
What brand of perfume does she wear?
When do we work out?
When do we work out?
What date was the concert?
What date was the concert? What date was the concert?
Where does the line start from? Who do we work with? What station do we get off at? Where do you work? How does it work? What kind of movie is it? Who does he call first? How do you spell your name? Which does she buy, this one or that one? When do they arrive here? What brand of detergent do you buy? What part of the menu were those items on? What day is the test? What channel does your family watch at night? When do we stay? Which do you save as a PDF? What floor are the offices on? When do your parents call you? What train do we take? Who do they live with? What type of room is yours? How do I lose weight?
Which do you read first?
Which do you read first?
When does she usually study?
When does she usually study?
What model of laptop does your team use at work?
What model of a laptop does your team use at work?
How do you practice English?
How do you practice English?
What style of car was it?
What style of car was it?
What level of classes do beginners take first?
What level of classes do beginners take first?
Who does your family talk to about this?
Who does your family talk to about this?
Where do we take the bus?
Where do we take the bus?
Which do I share with clients?
Which do I share with clients?
Which does your team follow, plan A or B?
Which does your team follow, plan A or B?
Which do your parents like more?
Which do your parents like more?
How do buses run on Sundays?
How do buses run on Sundays?
When does it end? What brand of coffee is it? Why do we wear these? Which does he prefer, tea or coffee?
How do you remember this? How does my team contact you? What color do you like for the logo? Why do you work out? What size do you wear? Which do we need today? What seat does he prefer? What classes were you in last semester? What kind of music do they listen to? Who do you think you are? What section of the website is it in? Who do you respect? What bus does she take to work? What time does the store open? Who does your team report to? Why does it lie to you? Why do I wait here? Where do you buy groceries? What type of exercise do we do at home? What sort of problems are those? Where does the subway connect to? Where does the subway connect to? How do I pay here? What side of the street are these on? When do your kids go to bed? What options were available? Why does your team have a meeting on Tuesday? Where does she take the test? What number is your room? Why does it take so long? When do I take a break? Where do I pay this fee? Why do you go there? Which do they order for lunch? What time was the meeting? What page do I read next? Why does it cost so much? What color is your bag? What brands are your headphones? When does the concert start? When do you go to work? When does he wear these? Why do they call you? What part of the what part of the city is that hotel in? Which do you send by email? What room do they use today? What kind of food do I usually order?